Okay. And then, so.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
So, Char, you were talking to us about in a colleague?
Yeah, I was just saying that in my company, our company has been adversely impacted by the testing issue. So for example, one of my employees who we're looking forward to being a future leader for us, who's been just awesome and phenomenal employee and really ambitious and hardworking, her husband's coworker tested positive for COVID. And then this employee and her husband just weren't feeling so well. They were just, obviously feeling some symptoms. So they went and got tested. And initially they said they were going to get their results back in 3 days. And then then the doctor said, and the way the notice was written, there's no way we're going to return her back to work because it was, indefinite as far as her return to work. And then she called her doctor, no, it's going to be 7 days. And then she got a call, I think the day before yesterday. She was all excited because she thought she was going to get the results, because right now she feels great. She's feeling absolutely good and she's ready to come back to work and ambitious to come back. And the medical office indicated that they don't know because there's such a backlog in the testing results right now. So they're not sure when she's going to get her results back. So, which is it's disappointing for her. So right now I have to look at ways to maybe have her do some work, different type of work from home. And then we have another employee up in our Montana location also, where the spouse, I believe the spouse there was some type of coworker. So I find it interesting that it's not even so much the employee, it's the spouses and the significant others, coworkers that are getting COVID. And then that's impacting a lot of employees where they're not getting those tests done. And then in the media, you notice they're talking a lot about the delay in the testing. So I'm sure many employers are having a real difficult time managing that.
Yeah, it's going to get worse before it gets better, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, particularly in the employment space too, because we want to keep her working. Obviously, she needs the hours, she needs the income.
Yeah.
As you look back at both seasons.
So, yeah, it's just interesting times, and but I think the best thing for us to do is when we did our staff meeting yesterday, we had FaceTime. We had several employees on FaceTime, several employees on phone, all around, just social distancing, trying to see each other. So even our staff meeting was very different. And then I had a colleague that kept messaging me. Lisa, I'm picking on you.
Yes, I had important things like, where's that expert tab? Because I don't feel like one. in the TMA, I couldn't find it.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, so.
You're good at juggling.
Yeah, I am, but I realized that that's not good, because when I was looking at my cell phone to answer you, next thing I look around and other people are like looking at their cell phones. They can't look at their cell phones. I'm like, no, don't do that. We're trying to have an engaging dialogue here.
That's how it goes.
But I will say that was super cool was when I met my manager and my director out in the parking lot before we went into the security entrance. She had brought out a whole handful of masks that are more like glasses, but they're the face shield. So it's not that big, what do you call it, foam thing, the foam thing, which is just, they like the face shield, but that foam thing is uncomfortable. So these are like, they wear like glasses, and they're just a clear protector, and you can get them on Amazon. They're about $4.99, $5, I guess, a piece. So, some of my employees feel like they can see their face better, but there's some controversy about that too. Do you wear both the mask and the plastic covering? So.
Well, if you want to be protected from the virus, I think that's the protocol. If you're just wearing the mask to protect others from you, then the mask itself, I think that's what I've heard. an N95 mask, you know, is a lot more protection, but the true way to make sure you're not transmitting is that shield thing, I guess.
Well, I was really impressed because I did see a lot of people walking around in their I mean, more now than I saw a few weeks ago. So that was awesome.
At the mall.
Yes.
I thought inside, so maybe I'm just thinking California because I was just out there, and they require anytime you're inside a building, you have to be. In fact, I think parts of California, mostly LA, you have to wear one even in public.
Well, it's interesting because the messaging, because of the rapidness of reopening has happened to where even like the mall owner, business owners were waiting till very last minute to get word if we could reopen or not. And then like the first day we got there, we're hearing the overhead speakers telling people what to, you know, that they have to wear masks. But I could tell there's a lot of confusion in the communication with the business owners and what was expected of the business owners, and then what is communicated to the people coming in. And so it was interesting because it hasn't been 100% clear. But now what they've done is they've added signage all over the place. So that wasn't there just, you know, a couple weeks ago. So there's every single, there's signs, must wear mask.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just, yeah, it's definitely intensified, at least we could tell here. So more so than just a few weeks ago.
So in India, they've made it mandatory to wear masks even when you're inside a car.
Really?
So
Really?
even if you're driving, the funny thing is they probably didn't think of it properly enough. So if you're the driver, it's mandatory for you to wear a mask. If you're a passenger, it isn't. I don't know how that helps. So the two people sitting side by side, for one, it's essential to wear a mask. For the other one, it isn't. So
how did they make that decision?
not sure why or how.
That is really interesting.
That is interesting.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe,
go
maybe
ahead.
it's for those, you know, the people that they don't know that are some sort of like Uber drivers or something like that.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
Well, I
Maybe.
will tell you the Uber drivers have definitely increased their responsibility on that because, I mean, we took an Uber drive. We do a lot of Uber and Lyft around here. Again, just a few weeks ago, the driver was kind of laxed about it. And now we took 3 Uber drives the other night, and they all had their masks on. Where's your mask? I mean, I was walking out of my house and the guy in the car was screaming at me, do you have your mask? And I was like, yes, it's in my purse. Let me get it on.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't even let me come like a whole house away without my mask on.
We said that was true in California too, because we took Uber everywhere and Lyft, and they were all, you know, wearing them. Some of them were a little more, like you said, vigilant with us, but we were just wearing them, you know, as soon as we got in the car.
What I really liked when I was watching the news is that I'm seeing a little more fashion relative to the masks. So if you have a cute pink blouse on, you have color coordinated pink. So I got to really thinking about that.
Yeah. Masks are here to stay. It's going to be a fashion statement for her.
Yeah, exactly.
So not only a fashion statement, Sam, it's also a revenue generating option because there are people who are using masks for advertising. So they're giving out free masks with their own messaging. And obviously the first thing you see about a person coming towards you is the mask. So there are brands who are jumping onto this opportunity really well.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea for the Healthy Employer or Rocky Mountain Health Advocates, Char.
Well, yes, and I thought about that too. I mean, we don't typically sell products in our store. We sell services that are all covered by insurance. But anyway, I was walking down the mall again, kind of checking everything out, thinking of the Healthy Employer, and many of the storefronts had a whole display of masks at many of the storefronts. But it's funny, I saw a meme the other day of some big box store that had a big, kind of like a sunglass display of masks. And then they had a big old mirror in the middle of it. So people have to try on their masks and see if it looks good. And then they put it back and try on another mask and see if that looks good.
I'm not sure if that's sanitary.
I know, and that's
Right. That was what I was.
That's the funny part. I'm like, people, I mean, you don't try them on like sunglasses, okay? And so take the mirror down. So in fact, I would think that if you're going to sell a mask, you may as well have it in a protective covering so no one else tries it on.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. At least, yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's just hilarious. The other thing you think about is, you know, like when you're using your credit card and using it in the gas pump, or, you know, that you have to sanitize your card, or if you're using gloves, that you can have a tendency to touch your face anyway if you're using gloves. And then the other thing I've noticed, see, I live in the city, you guys can tell, so I see a lot of this stuff. But I noticed when I went to King Soopers yesterday, there's like gloves laying all over the ground. Like people just, as soon as they walk out of the store, it's like plop, plop, they throw their glove on the ground. And nobody's going to pick them up, you know?
Yeah, that's too bad. Well, you know, I mean, a lot of this, I mean, is social responsibility we're talking about too. I mean, I know there's a lot of conversation around freedom and social responsibility, and there's they're at heads right now. But I think that there's, you know, we need to find the balance in all this. It's, I mean,
Yeah.
Clearly either way can be too far. I mean, we need to be concerned about our neighbors and so forth, but we also need to make sure that we are moving forward as a world and getting people to work and getting back to business and so.
Well, I admit, I think we at times slip up a little bit. So I have a very social group and they love outdoor concerts. And I've gone to a couple outdoor concerts where they have social distancing. So I posted a picture, and the tables were all socially distanced, you know. And I posted a picture, and it was a cover band. It was a Boston cover band, which is phenomenal, by the way, if anyone wants to know. But anyway, they're called Smokin'. That I posted a picture, and my dad posted something like, all over the place, big disgrace, spreading your germs all over the place. And then he goes, be smart. And I'm like, okay, Dad, all right, now I got to really think about this, you know, because I mean, I respect him so much and love him so much. And then he was kind of concerned. He's like, why are you going to an outdoor concert, even though they were practicing the principles, which I think they're doing a good job of. But it made me think twice about that. I thought that was kind of a funny little, I guess that's a Queen's thing.
So I just saw Brian O'Neill join. So Brian, you know, I did promote you to panelist. If you want to join us, feel free. If you don't have your face powdered up and stuff like that, feel free to stay.
You guys are hilarious.
Yeah, you have to have your nose powder on because it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And your mascara, the most important thing.
That's right.
So
I'm trying a new microphone today. Let me know if it sounds all right to you.
It's a little echoey, but it, you know, it sounds nice. Yeah.
An actual like two streams of audio, or just does it sound like I'm in a big room?
Oh no, it sounds like in a big room. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Big room.
Yeah. So I used that Yeti Blue microphone. It's a podcasting microphone. It's big, you know, but it's usually good quality. I don't know. Does everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I do. I use the same one, but it's a bit tricky to get it set up because you have to get there's all these settings on there that, yeah. Oh, look he's in the sunrise mode.
That's right. Nice.
Well, we're a few seconds out. We're about ready to get started. So welcome everybody. Hi, Brian.
Oh, let me get the presentation up here. All right. I think everybody.
Oh, great. Okay. Here we go again, another week. Gosh, I think we're up to 17 or 18. I have to go back and count of people forums.
Yeah, I'll start including those on the front screen here to show it'd be easier to tell which episode we're on.
Right. Well, welcome everybody. We greatly appreciate you joining us today. We're so happy to have you part of our great discussion at the People Strategies Forum. It is very interesting times to talk about what's happening in our world today. And today is July 22nd, 2020. So welcome everybody. So my name is Char Miller, and I am a HR and talent management strategist, and also a consultant. And I also own my own company called Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. So not only am I an HR consultant and talent management consultant, I know the pains of owning a business during these critical times. I also like to welcome Lisa Jackson. She's a culture strategist, and she's been an amazing part of our team with some very innovative, out-of-the-box, progressive thinking around culture and culture transformation. And I'd also like to welcome Sam Reeve. And Sam Reeve is the founder and owner of CompTeam. And he has just done a phenomenal job helping all of us with this initiative around People Strategy Forum, and the big sponsor of these events. Also want to welcome Sumit Singla, and he is the founder of Elevant HR Consulting. And obviously Sumit is from India, so he is awesome. His also very progressive global way of thinking around people strategies. And then I'd also like to welcome Brian O'Neill. He's been a great presenter in the past, as well as help us with the chats and also be an additional thought partner with us today. So today we have a very relevant topic, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but I just want to say logistically, you'll notice this is our forum here on our webinar. Please go ahead and participate with this webinar in the chat. So you'll notice down below, we have very engaging and enlightening conversation. Any questions that you have, topics, and stories that you may have that you'd like to share, this is a great way to engage with us. And we as a panelist team will look at your comments, answer those, and as well as integrate it into our engaging discussion. Also, after the forum today, we ask that you share through all your social media outlets and LinkedIn. Oh, and LinkedIn with us too. We'd like to have you connected with us because we have a very integrated approach of sharing articles, videos, thoughtful information, and then also take a look at our compteam.net because we have recorded all the prior People Strategy forums, and you would learn a lot. There's a lot of free gifts and exciting information there that you can take advantage of as a small business owner or HR leader that your company can use for free. So it's a value added benefit to you. So take a look at those. And then also you'll notice that I guess we're not going to do the poll today, right, Sam?
Oh, no, I can pull that up. Yep.
Okay. So Sam's going to pull up a poll. And so in addition to our variety of free gifts, we also have additional free gifts that you can have. One is a TMA assessment portal that we'll talk about, as well as 15-minute consultations with the core team, myself, Lisa, Sam, and Sumit. So if you want to learn a little bit more about our best practices and what we recommend, we'll give you a free consultation as well. So all you need to do is fill out that poll. So let's go ahead and talk about today about what we're going to review. First of all, we're going to spend some time about the healthy employer of yesterday and today. So this is transforming. So many of us had wellness and well-being programs, but now it's taken on a whole new direction. So how do you strategically plan being a healthy employer and moving towards the future of having a healthy and well-being workplace? And then we'll wrap up with some very engaging conversation relative to each of our areas of expertise of compensation and rewards, as well as development that Sam and Brian can also add to. So let's go ahead.
So Char, one more thing, just a couple more announcements. I just want to make sure everybody on the online knows that one thing, there's been reports of some people having trouble getting into Zoom. So if any of your colleagues are having issues, please direct them to the, we have the recordings, of course, but let me know if you hear of any issues. Another thing is we have a lot of great speakers in our audience right now that, if any of you of our speakers that have been on and or contributors would like to be promoted to a panelist to join in discussion, just shoot me a chat and I'll join you in. And then so I can just bring you in. So you'll be able to have a discussion or show your video. It'd be completely fine. And I also want to mention that next week we have a very important speaker that's going to be joining us from Austria, Andreas Fritsch, and he's with the Fritsch Consulting Group. He's going to talk about the VUCA world, which is basically means it's the amount of volatility and transformation that we're going through right now. And he's going to talk about how he can improve resilience, or how he counsels a lot of his leadership to improve resilience in their businesses. So Andreas is a real dynamic guy. He just got back from a mountain leadership training course that he took a lot of his clients on in the Alps. And so hopefully he'll share some pictures, and that should be fun to see.
Talk about some resilience to be able to climb the Alps with your leadership retreat.
Yeah.
That's great. So as you can see, we're being very global. We have all types of different countries represented here to help us with these really important discussions. So this has just been a phenomenal experience. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Today is about how we manage and evolve and thrive in today's work environment. So today we're going to talk about the healthy employer of yesterday and today, from wellness to well-being. So I'm co-facilitating with Sumit here. Hi, Sumit. How you doing today?
Since we're talking about wellness and well-being, Char, that's a slightly difficult concept to maintain these days with COVID, but hanging in there. Right.
Well, I hear you there. I have to tell you, my entire attitude about well-being is completely shifted in these times. So I'd like us to really talk about this and help employers really think differently through these times. And health and well-being is so vital, and caring about your employees' health and well-being is even more so. So absolutely great. So to talk about the agenda today, we'll be talking about the view from yesterday. So I used to be a talent management strategist, as well as an individual that partnered very heavily with the wellness department and healthcare systems. And it's a very integrated approach. And so we'll talk about some of the experiences of what yesterday looked like around this topic. Then we'll talk about the need for transformation. So even though we may have had some advanced approaches, and we'll also look at some case studies where this has been impacted and how it needs to be transformed, even with some of the successful practices of some really high-end companies. And then also how we change our paradigm shift moving forward, a completely different mindset. And what can you do? We'll give you some actual legitimate steps that you can go through with your companies to change this mindset. And again, we always have a free gift. So that's our agenda today. So on the next slide. So hey, Sumit, want to talk about this?
Definitely. So a Deloitte study indicates that more than 40% of workers face extremely stressful situations which affect their productivity, their health, and also their family stability. So clearly, even though a lot of conversations have started happening around well-being in the recent past, it doesn't look like we're doing enough. What do you think, Char?
Oh, absolutely. All of these factors I have seen an impact not only for employees, but also business owners. It's been extremely stressful. And not only do we have to think about keeping our businesses, sustained, you can't really run a business if your employees are not well and they're dealing with all of these personal factors and that are impacting their ability to be productive. So I'm not surprised by this statistic. And this is a legitimate statistic from Deloitte. You used to work with Deloitte, right?
That's correct. In fact, I was part of the team that used to conduct this study, and we had about 10,000 HR leaders from across the globe participating. So this is as legit and as global as it gets in terms of numbers, and it's a very, very global study in terms of covering almost 150 plus countries.
Well, hey, that's in 2018. What do you think the statistic is now? I mean, I don't know if we can get our hands on something that's as recent as this year. I'm sure that's increased.
So they're still compiling the report for this year. The stats should be out shortly, but I'm sure the number would only increase. And especially if COVID has been factored in, I think the amount of stress might just have shot up to 50% plus.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure. And we were talking about this before we started, how important it is to feel healthy and safe in the work environment, and how much of an impact that has on performance and the workplace for your employees. And also, you know, I know, Char, you're going to have some stories to share just about the customer experience later on. So yeah, it's
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this has been a challenge for many workplaces. And a lot of effort, particularly big organizations, has been to address this. But even now, looking back at and I'll share some stories here in a bit, but looking back at my prior stories, those might not have been enough. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
So the interesting thing here is that's a great point in the chat window, Brian, that high stress seems to be the default standard. The interesting silver lining there is that because COVID has disrupted businesses so much, I think businesses are talking a lot more about well-being. So the conversation wasn't as out in the open earlier, but now people are realizing, leaders are realizing that unless employees feel safe, engaged, happy, and healthy about coming back to work, they are not coming back. So that's probably been a little bit of a boost for well-being, even though we're facing a global pandemic, which is taking lives by the thousands every single day. So on that note, on one hand, we tend to think of wellness and well-being as a fairly recent phenomenon. Research says that it started almost 400 years ago. So considering 40% people are still feeling stressed, looks like we haven't made a whole lot of progress in 4 centuries of talking about a concept. But so there was an Italian physician who first wrote about how work or overwork can negatively impact people. Then we saw the Industrial Revolution, which sparked off a sudden increase in the number of health issues and stress, injuries, and mental health wasn't even on the table at that point of time. In the 19th century, a Welsh social worker proposed an 8-hour workday and said that we should devote 8 hours to work, 8 to recreation, and 8 hours to rest. Commuting probably wasn't a thing back then, so they forgot to factor in time for that, I guess. But even as far back as the 1950s, conversations around mental health and mental wellness were already beginning. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of how the conversation around wellness has evolved, and but looks like it's still not enough, and we've got a lot more work to do.
Exactly, it's amazing. In fact, this is something that of yesterday that I personally was creating talent management strategies, attempting just a few years ago, working with major healthcare systems such as Banner Health and Kaiser Permanente are the 2 biggest healthcare systems that I'm working with. Back in 2016, 2015, I personally was a talent management strategist working with the director of wellness. And if you're familiar with the Thrive concept, a lot of companies have, well, particularly Kaiser, had a Thrive concept that was very much about the well-being of the employees. And what was fantastic is that they offered a free assessment, medical assessment, because they're a very integrated healthcare system. And I remember we had I don't have the statistics here, but we had many dialogues that even though we had a very integrated wellness concept and it was very much about the culture, the targets were not really there still. I mean, we still did surveys and found our employees were dealing with stress, anxiety, dealing with substance abuse, and dealing with a lot of very personal things. It was HIPAA protected, obviously, but very, very challenging, even trying to integrate that. So when I left that role, I really started thinking heavily about this concept of healthy employer. So even just a couple of years ago, of really thinking about this strategic aspect of not only how you can have physical well-being, psychological, emotional, personal, and professional, environmental, and many of the very out-of-the-box and very practical things that an employer can do to integrate into their culture. And this is something that I think many employers are now finally really realizing, that your employees can't be productive or not even wanting to work for you if some of these basic fundamental things are addressed. Your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, so and this is something that we just spoke about last week, Char, with your recruiting efforts. I mean, we found that right now, I mean, people are some employees out there receiving some assistance from the government, being home and so forth. And we need to create a healthy workplace to be able to attract those people to come back to work. And so this stuff is critical. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, even with my company, we really started recruiting more heavily at the beginning of last year when we started hiring on as staff. At one point, we had about 30 employees. And so last year we were looking at, well, do we have a water machine? Do we have a hydration, for our employees so that they can stay hydrated? Because a lot of your mental cognitive abilities is around hydration. And you don't think as clearly if you can't even do that. Right? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, your brain actually shrinks, right, when you're dehydrated. So
yes. Where's my water? Well, and oftentimes when I worked in healthcare, the nurses were really, it was frustrating because they would have a little water machine for the patients, but the nurses weren't really encouraged about keeping a water bottle. And it was kind of an epidemic of dehydration. So really thinking of, I mean, that could be a whole topic in itself.
Oh, I know. Just really quick, just another story, real quick. I was downtown the other day, and in the mall, what they did is they, I saw a person walk up to the water fountain, the public water fountain, and turned it on, and nothing came out, and he's, looking on the side trying to push these different buttons, and it turns out that they just turned them all off, as part of a. They're thinking that it could be spreading germs or whatever for the virus. And so that everything was turned out. So hydration is not a piece of it. But another thing I wanted to mention is just backing up a bit, because we've talked about the employee value proposition and how important that is to really attract and retain people. And this is a whole nother element that is now focused in a dominant light, just the healthy employer piece. I mean, now employees are actually looking, they want to have, they realize now due to what's going on in the environment is that their health is critically important. It's the main driver for them to earn, make a living. If they're not healthy, if their employer doesn't care about having a healthy environment, it not only impacts, the potential for success for the employer, but also the employee's ability to earn and stay employed and function. So this is quite a relevant topic.
Yeah, it's very relevant when you talk about culture. So at Banner Health, they were really focused on physician, well, not only employees, but also the physician work environment. So, they would actually create actual more than just a break room. I'm talking about a great break room with healthy snacks, with massage chairs, with aromatherapy, anything that was relaxing and de-stressing to really help the physicians. If you're a surgeon and you're going to hold the heart of a patient in your hands, you need to de-stress and relax before, and really mentally focus before you walk into that very high stress environment. So when we're talking about yesterday, I think that was well over 15 years ago. I think many employers are really thinking out of the box. Now, I was working pretty heavily with the OR director in that case. It was like, okay, well, that's great that we're handling the physicians here, but what can we do to help the employees? I don't think we even quite got there yet, but we were really working on that. as far as creating that health environment. So as you can see, there's many topics here. It's a little bit hard to read, but there are many things that I think strategically an HR leader can really think about. I know, for example, on the personal level, you don't want to get too involved in the personal aspects of your employees' personal life. But to the point of balance and being able to talk about these things like healthcare, your basic healthcare. Many employers these days have to drop healthcare right now because it's literally too expensive. And as a matter of fact, that's what happened to my company, Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. We had just adopted some new healthcare, and unfortunately, it was way too expensive. So right when the epidemic started, well, we had to really think about cost-saving measures, and actually, that was one that got impacted.
You know, one other thing I want to just point out here is this is really interesting as a story. I noticed that under the personal column here, you have safe housing. Now, and this is just one of my past clients. They were hiring a lot of people out of, or trying to recruit people in Mexico City and so forth. And one of their big considerations of people that they're attracting is that they wanted to make sure that they wanted to have the ability to live in a gated community. And that was really important to a benefit to get people to relocate there and so forth. So it's when we're looking at the healthy employer, it's good to make sure that we poll our people and talk to recruiting to see what is important in these different locations.
Yeah, particularly with some of the healthcare short. I know I talk a lot about healthcare, but in the healthcare shortage right now, particularly in the rural communities. Housing is very, very challenging, particularly when there's no rentals available. There's a very shortage of that. And so employers really need to think about the investment of providing some of those environmental factors and housing factors to address some of those hierarchy of needs. So the healthy employer yesterday, it's been around, just like what Sumit talked about. This is a historical thing. It's not, and also it's just interesting that we're not necessarily achieving that. So let's go ahead and move to what we can do now. So this is an interesting statistic. Sumit, what did you think about this?
So this is a statistic that's just focused on the US, and the cost to the US is $300 billion in terms of lost days because of absenteeism, lack of productivity, and people feeling burnt out and exiting their jobs. So $300 billion is obviously not a joke, and it's money that can be saved very easily with some wellness initiatives. In fact, there's also a piece of research which says that for every dollar that you spend on well-being initiatives, some companies that have researched the ROI, they find the return is about $2.71 for every single dollar that you spend. So there's enough and more of a business case to invest in well-being as well. And on the healthcare note, which you mentioned, interestingly, the biggest health-related benefit that's coming up as per a study recently is health insurance for companion animals. So more than 5,000 companies in the US alone have started offering health coverage for companion animals, and companies like Google are at the forefront, where people who have dogs are actually called, so Google calls its employees Googlers. People who have dogs at Google are called Dooglers. So they've got health insurance for them as well. And
right.
Family health is an important part of well-being, and of course, the health of your companion animals is a part of that as well. So
this is just a quick story as you bring that up. I was working with a German company recently, and they were trying to figure out what benefits that were their American colleagues. They had a location in the United States, and they were trying to figure out what benefits they wanted, and one of them was pet insurance. You know, that was and Germany was. There's like, oh, what is this pet insurance? I mean, this seems to be such a priority in the U.S. And yes, in fact, is a key thing that a lot of employees want. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when I started my first job as an HR coordinator, and I remember when my my cat passed away suddenly, and I remember the lack of compassion when my cat passed away. You know, I was expected to go back to work, and of course I showed up. I was crying all day. But there was definitely a lack of compassion at that time. So what was great is I saw over the years the pet insurance started coming into play, and this really helps de-stress stress and anxiety and supporting people. It's part of their family, right? They're fur babies. It's part of their family. Lisa, did you have a thought?
Well, I was just responding to this slide about the 300 billion, and I've heard this statistic before, and I wonder if that, I just was curious or wondering if that has gone up with COVID because of how much more, there is sort of what I'm hearing, and this is an interesting little bit of a dichotomy, is that with the remote work, actually, and some of the clients that I'm working with are affirming this, that we have actually increased productivity because we're working from home. If we're not feeling well, we can still maybe work a few hours a day, or perhaps there's a way that we can kind of blend the work productivity with some of the self-care and some of the family care that we're participating in. So it's just a lot more fluid. So it just makes me kind of, this slide in particular just makes me wonder if the future of work and the ability to have more flexibility around where it's done and all of that is helping. I think that the other big thing that I see when I do interviews with the culture work is so much of the stress comes from the team itself, the immediate team that you're working with. So it's not being in the work environment as much as it is about having a boss who is nurturing the team in a really constructive way. So right. I wonder with COVID too, where some of that is landing, and if people in the chat want to speak up about any of their experiences with that one as well.
I think this definitely speaks to the I think HR people are business savvy and have business acumen as well. But I think one of the struggles of HR and talent management strategists is how to substantiate the real return on investment and cost impact to the organization. Mm-hmm. I think that a good HR person that's really increased their competency to really understand the analytical side of the cost implications of workers' compensation, the cost implications of work injuries, things like we were a bed lift initiative. How do you really equate that to how expensive this is to the organization? So I'm glad to say that our team has a great analytics about experts that can really substantiate the real impact to your organization and how much it costs your organization overall. And I'll say particularly right now, many employers have had to reduce costs. So a lot of it's about reducing costs, and unfortunately it's the cost reduction is relative to the soft stuff, or what is considered that is not qualitative. And oftentimes it's perceived that the wellness program or some of those HR programs that are around the wellness or well-being topic are generally the first that are impacted. But in the end, there is a real cost implication which comes out in productivity and ability to meet your customer demands. So I think the responsible employer today is really needing to take a look at that topic and really dig down and do the homework and assess that. So great point, Lisa, as far as really understanding that.
Yeah, and really teaching people basic methods of how to stay healthy, and how to build their immune system, like we were talking about before we started today, is where the key is. But we were talking in the chat about, some of us were sharing that there's this mindset on the part of the organization, is it really even our responsibility or what is our responsibility in terms of helping people stay healthy or be healthy? Isn't that the individual's responsibility? Isn't that something that they should take their own responsibility for? Is it really something that as an employer, I think there is still a lot of struggle on the part of leaders with that mindset, which, leads to things like we cut the program, as soon as budgets are tight.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lisa. I mean, I think it's up to leadership to really set the tone on what is the ideal values that the culture that the company should have, and a healthy employer, I think, is a good one. I mean, to Char's point, it does cost employers a lot of money and business interruption every year. And so it's important for us to, as leadership, and influencing our leaders to make sure that this is taken seriously.
Right.
So in fact, we dive into a little more detail on that point on the next slide, where essentially we're saying what's the flaw? Where's the gap in the programs of the past? The issue is that all of them seem to put the onus back on the employee. So this is where I've got a slight disagreement with what you were saying, Sam and Lisa. As an employee, who is contributing to my job stress? The employer or the manager or the team? But the employer says, Sumit, you're stressed or you're unhealthy. You should take 10,000 steps a day. You should call a mental health helpline if you're stressed. You need to attend mindfulness training because I see you're very clearly distracted. Who is the cause of my distraction? You. So it's time employers took some onus for being the contributors to job stress and to taking away some elements of well-being from people and co-creating or co-delivering some of the well-being solutions and not really pushing things at people. And I'm kind of ashamed to say that when I started out, I was one of those people who were pushing these solutions at people. So I was part of a consulting organization and people were already working 12, 13 hours a day. And here I was trying to tell them that if you take 10,000 steps a day, you will feel more productive, you'll feel more energized. And people were obviously unhappy about the fact that this guy has no concept of reality. I mean, I'm so exhausted by the time I get back home. I don't even want to take 100 steps. I just want to get into bed and finish the day off.
Yeah, and have a glass of wine. But yeah, I would tell you that the other problem is, for example, one of my companies, we had an employee gym. And it was interesting every time, it was, for some people, they didn't want to go to the employee gym because, if you're the vice president of marketing and you're down there in the employee gym and you're in your headband and sweating it out, and you're next to your employee, that had a stigma in itself. So, being able to have an environment that said, no, this is great. The other problem we had is that particular employee gym where we spent, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the equipment for, it was empty all the time. It was, you might see one person in there or two maybe. And, of course they had Jerry Springer on the TV or whatever. But the problem is when we started analyzing, why is it the employees are not taking advantage of it? Well, unfortunately, our employees could never get a break. The hours that, if they took a break, we didn't give them enough time to even get ready to go exercise during their lunch hour. And obviously then we had a very adamant thing about time cards, making sure everybody's just on time. So it created a culture of negativity around going for the walk, going up the stairs, allowing time to go up the stairs with your little walker thing. And then also, I think that the challenge is that our executive leaders, many of them were not role modeling themselves a healthy lifestyle. Where the executive leaders were very high stress, high strung. Executive leaders were bombarding people with emails all day long and weekend long and night long. And employees would be like, oh, I got to answer this email. It's a Sunday morning. I'm at church, but I got to really get to my PowerPoint that I got to get, submit on Monday. And so also where the executive leader didn't really necessarily look healthy, as far as you could tell, whatever their physical appearance is, you know what I mean? But they just didn't look or act healthy. So if you're going to really create that environment of health, be what you want to create and involve your employees that this is not just about demanding you get healthy. We are going to get healthy together.
Yeah. So Sumit, didn't you have a story you were telling us yesterday about smoking?
So this is when I was working on a solution for well-being for the organization, and I had a boss who used to smoke like a chimney, and she used to be obviously she was extremely busy and she had a lot of things to do running around. So the only time I could discuss how to improve well-being for our people was during her smoke breaks. And so while we were brainstorming on the wellness solution, I think passive smoking must have destroyed half of my lung tissue for sure. And this became a bit of a running joke when I told her that now you need to do something to fix my own well-being, which is taking a hit because of you giving me all that nicotine and smoke.
Well, she could provide you one of those filters. No. Well, I just have to say, you know, one story that I have is one of our CEOs, one of my favorite CEOs of a healthcare system. We had a smoking hut that was, you know, one of those glass, like sun houses, sunrooms. And it was built right outside by the cafeteria. And it was outside. We had a challenge, though, is that we were trying to go to a smokeless campus, because obviously patients, you know, when they see people, RNs and employees in their scrubs standing on the corner with their cigarettes constantly. And I understand what you're talking about, Sumit. I've been there too, where the manager, if you got, the only time you can really have a heart-to-heart is during a smoke break. I'm not a smoker, but that's sometimes it happens. But anyway, what was really cool about the CEO is that he wanted to show that we really are moving to a smokeless campus. And the funny thing is, he created this entire event, and he ended up with a sledgehammer. And he was out there with all the employees, and they were smashing the smoking hut. But the problem was, is that, which was very kind of interesting. The problem was, is that the employees that did struggle with the addiction of smoking, you know, it's like, okay, you're just going to tell me to go cold turkey. Okay, I can't smoke anymore. Because back when I worked at McLean, not to talk about companies, there used to be smoking in the cubicles back in the day, right? And when I worked at CSU, there used to be a smoking break room with proper ventilation to get the smokes out of the break room. That was a long time ago that I remember those days. But anyway, then I noticed this healthcare system did everything in their power to provide patches, provide coaching, provide counseling, anything to help employees deal with smoking, because working in the healthcare system is extremely stressful. But you know, patients smell it on you. Mm-hmm. So that could be a negative thing.
Well, I think this is important, and Andre Bloom just made a comment as far as sometimes when we're thinking about incentives, it's a negative correlation regarding health, and so that's one thing that we should consider when we talk about goals in an organization, and we lay that out, and we're making sure that we're encouraging managers to help enable the employee to achieve those goals and so forth. And back to the point that you had earlier, Sumit, as far as employees or employers saying, you should do this, you should do that. What are the employers doing to help enable success in these programs? And they should take some ownership in this. So for instance, like you said, Char, I mean, you know, those smoking cessation programs it's an enabling factor to help achieve a goal that can further help improve performance. And so those are pieces that should definitely be considered in companies.
Fully agree, Sam. And in fact, a great point, Andre, as well. Another story that comes to mind is that of Google, where they use the concept of what's called the path of least resistance to build in behavioral change. So Google found that if you just place the dessert counter in the cafeteria a little further away, people are less likely to tank on the calories. And it could be well applied to smoking as well. So I remember working for a client where we were on the 25th floor. All the partners and the senior people, they had a smoking room on the 25th floor itself. So they had access to the balcony to smoke. And all the junior staff, they had to actually step out of the building and about 50 yards away to go and get a smoke. And considering this is India, where the temperature for most of the year is close to 100 degrees, not a very pleasant thing to do. When you're a consultant wearing a suit and a tie, you definitely don't want to step out and do that. So I think it was a bit of maybe negative reinforcement, but it did work towards bringing smoking down. And
right.
Maybe we could apply to different concepts of well-being as well.
That's so interesting on the 25th floor. I'll also say, so in my past, you know, many leaders bring in donuts and sweets that are convenient to pick up on the way into work. And at the same time, I would see where the donuts were being cleared out to make room for the Weight Watcher meeting. And it's like, that's very interesting. It's like the people in the Weight Watcher meeting having to resist that. But addiction is real. And I think addiction today is, there's food addiction, substance addiction, emotional addiction, all kinds of things that are addressed. And, we spend a third of our lives in the workplace. And, in the past, I'd see that, great, you're on a diet, you're taking walking breaks during lunch. But let's go ahead and bring in all this nasty snacks and everything else and expect our employees to represent wellness in the workplace. And these are the same companies that say they have a well work culture, right? So I definitely agree with you. It needs to be a well shared responsibility.
Yeah. So, just one thing, because I just wanted to mention a thing on what Sumit was saying. There was in behavior. I'm a big fan of behavioral psychology and on trying to find ways that we can improve performance for employees and so forth. And I listened to a lot of shows, and there's, I can't give credit because I can't remember the name of it, but it was an outfit that I was listening to their podcast, and to what you were saying, Sumit, just simply arranging the cafeteria to where the greens are first in line, and everything in succession there as it gets to less healthy is towards the end. They find that employees tend to fill up their plates with the good food and make better choices when they simply arrange the line more appropriately. So things like that. So, and what we make available in the break room or for snacks and things like that, I know there's whole businesses out there that focus on bringing healthy snacks in the workplace and so forth. So
right. And I have seen where, for example, we forget about our night employees. We forget to have, if we have a cafeteria, to have a fresh salad bar and healthy options off the grill, and just have the convenience foods. And it really can impact negatively that perception of those employees that work nights and weekends as well. And then the other thing I saw in the wellness area is, think about your employees when they go home. One of the recommendations that myself and some others made on the committee to come up with this was, why not have a healthy meal kit in your cafeteria that at the end of the workday, your employee can go grab that and have a healthy meal kit to take home and prepare. Because oftentimes employees are so exhausted, they don't have time to stop at the grocery store and pick up healthy ingredients and things like that. So if your employer has those resources, those are some great ways to not only take care of the health and well-being of your employee, but help them make their lives easier and more simplistic so they can take care of their families at home.
Yeah, that's an excellent benefit. I mean, I've had some clients that would do that when, especially during the very busy times of year where their employees are staying late to get a special project done. They would either do that solution, or they would do a subscription solution and put their family on a subscription solution so that they would get meals delivered directly to their house that were healthy. If one of the caregivers, that were not able to be home on time or so forth.
Right. And they talk about total rewards and recognition. That is very out of the box thinking that I think many employers may want to think about. I've seen others where directors would get their employees maid services or personal services such as dry cleaning. Not that you think that's a wellness program, but the fact that allowing an employee to go home and have some real rest time and be able to sleep and take care of their families is so critical, because many of us are sleep deprived.
Yeah, just think of the non-spoken communication that comes from your employer of caring about you, caring about your family, about your health.
Mm-hmm. So I oftentimes say, if you have core values in your organization, why not brush them off? When you talk about things like our values are compassion, dignity, and respect, what does that really mean? Well, these wellness programs are about compassion, are about dignity, and are about respect, for example. So what does that truly mean? And it like Sumit, like you say here, you can definitely enhance your corporate reputation, because I think many of us have heard of other employees that are not necessarily healthy. And I know we know the rumors of what those organizations are. So why do we in the public think they're unhealthy? Well, it's probably because employees talk about it. Employees talk about their work environment and how unhealthy it is. Mm-hmm. And ultimately that can impact your reputation as an employer. And ultimately impact your business and your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sumit.
Sorry, sir. So it's all, I think the conversation on values is very relevant, and how do you really live up to the values that you're talking about? I think that's important. We talk about values like being empathetic or being nurturing towards relationships within the organization. So one example that I can quote here is at Accenture, they introduced the concept of signatures, where we were a global organization, so you could be getting emails at 2 a.m. your time, and the email would have a signature saying, "I'm sending this email to you at a time that's convenient to me. Please do not feel pressurized to respond as soon as you see it." So the idea was to, I mean, it's almost become like Pavlovian conditioning. You wake up in the morning, you look at 18 notifications on your phone, and you feel like, even before I brush my teeth, I have to respond to all of these. So
yeah,
on
a personal note, I would get those texts like at 3:30 in the morning or 4 in the morning, one that wakes you up. You know, so you don't really get restful sleep, but then all of a sudden you have this anxiety and fear that I'm not meeting my manager's expectations, because I'm all of a sudden out of sync. And then also created a very competitive environment. So the employees that were willing to get up at 2 in the morning and get the database set up or the PowerPoint in perfect order, and we're messaging the VP, all this work I'm doing at 2 in the morning, it created a lot of unrest culturally within the teams as well.
Yeah, that's a true case of what leadership abuse and what, I mean, they're setting the wrong example. I mean, and we now have tools, and it's almost in every platform. I think Outlook has it, Gmail, Google has it, where we can time our messages that go out at, during a more of an appropriate time instead of what's at midnight.
Well, it's also a compensation matter, which is a different topic, right? Because employees working from home on their smart tablets and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm.
So the scheduling option that you're talking about, Sam, I've seen the opposite use of it, where an employee wants to highlight to somebody that I've been burning midnight oil and really working super hard. So I finish work at 10 p.m., but I schedule the email to go out at 2 a.m. so that as my manager, you feel that, oh, this guy's working super hard, he's sending me emails at 2 a.m. And so you start quoting that example to other people and saying, look at what an amazingly hard worker this guy is. I even get emails from him at 2 a.m. So that's turning it the other way around and creating an absolutely toxic culture out of.
And we had to, exactly. We had to think of the mindset around that. I mean, and also you can think of the expectations around time management. Another thing as far as a leader can put down as a standard is making sure that we're setting time, we're having a balanced work life. We're spending time with our families, we're spending time with recreation, we're spending time with thinking strategically and getting things done. I mean, all those pieces there needs to be balance. And
absolutely.
And of course we shouldn't be working at 3 a.m. unless your clients or your colleagues are, that's necessary in your work life, as we are now in a global world. But yeah, definitely should be taken.
Yeah, because when you get to later years and you look back, and I am also guilty of this. There were many times that I was in the office till 7 p.m. at night, particularly when I was a new HR business partner, and I was late in my office, sitting in the office. I do remember I had an awesome vice president that came in, and she said, "Char, why are you still here at 7 p.m.?" And she's like, "You got 2 young kids at home." And it was because I was working so hard to make a difference. And one of the things she said, we need to help all of us work smarter, not necessarily harder. And that resonated with me, to work smarter, and that this is the example that we're setting. So good points. So going to the next slide here, we'll just proceed on. So we're still talking about yesterday, right?
So we're moving on to today from yesterday, Char, and we're trying to turn it into more of an employee-centric conversation. All conversations about what do employees want today, for various outcomes for employees, we're talking about putting the employee at the center and designing solutions accordingly. So not really three wise men sitting in a corner in a boardroom and deciding this is what I think will make sense to my employees, but rather hearing from the employees themselves, looking at what different kinds of personas work in our organization, what are the different generations, what I mean age-wise, what kind of diverse talent pools do we have, and what makes them tick. So some of the things that we've been hearing over the years is that there's a lot more of millennials and people who are joining the workforce really early. So one of the key needs here is financial well-being. So you're suddenly starting to manage money. It's important to get the counseling, get the right direction to stay debt-free, make some smart investment decisions so that you don't really have to worry about that aspect. You can pay off your education loans and so on and so forth. So that's one. Second, of course, the health front, physical well-being. People are becoming a lot more aware of the need to stay healthy, the need to avoid lifestyle diseases, which are catching us much earlier than they used to in an earlier generation. So that's always been important. Social well-being, which is how to function effectively in a cohesive team. So to give you an example, one of the Gallup engagement surveys has a question called, I have a best friend at work. So the idea is to gauge whether the social well-being aspect exists in the organization or not. And lastly, the mental well-being part of it. And we've been having this discussion in the chat as well. So earlier employee assistance programs were in the form of little flyers tucked away in restrooms somewhere because we automatically judged that there would be a stigma around talking about mental health. Now the conversation is a lot more open. People are being encouraged to talk about their own mental well-being needs. So it's great that the conversation is coming out and we're able to solve some issues on the mental well-being front before maybe they even arise for a lot of our people.
Yeah.
And that's what people of today are really demanding from their employers.
Yeah, and this is an image that Andre Bloom from the TMA method talking about knowing how people tick. And I think it's really critical to open up those crucial conversations, those real in-depth conversations. Again, not to cross the line of getting too personal about your financial well-being or your personal mental health, or if you're exercising or not. But I mean, really understanding how your people tick and starting to have these conversations. Also, you know, you heard in the media that recently a physician that was dealing with the COVID and all the mental anguish in her work environment as a physician ultimately committed suicide. And these are really, really important topics to think about. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD or what level that you're at. If you're really struggling in your, I mean, you might come across at work as a highly functioning, highly productive employee, but underneath all of that may be issues going on that is really impacting that person personally on the inside out. And you know, a good leader and should think about these things more than just a program.
That's true. I mean, I was just saw in the news the other day that the anniversary of the actor Robin Williams, you know, passing away, suicide, and it's critical for leaders to you know, be more than just surface level. I mean, we need to know our people. We need to understand that the stresses and what they're dealing with on their personal basis as well. Of course, we're not saying that you should go and intrude, but you should develop relationships where we understand what's going on. So if they have a death in the family, we understand that performance may fall off, and you know, what can we do to give this important employee extra support during that time, or and you know, how do we enable that? And so it's important. I mean, I know that when we think about the legality of a lot of this, it scares people. But we need to get back to the humanism of our people and getting to know one another, and it'll solve a lot of this.
Right. Well, these mental health issues are real impact, and the way employees manage them, like for example, when the Aurora shootings happened, and with that particular case, I heard many night employees were really upset because their mental well-being wasn't necessarily cared for. They were given employee assistant program pamphlets. Here's a pamphlet, you know, but yeah, you got to be here at 2 in the morning and you know, do this very high stress shift. And it's interesting because if you watch social media, I do see a lot of employees that are very frustrated and angry because they don't feel that their well-being and mental wellness is being cared for. And also thinking about the social well-being. So for example, in the workplace, I've seen hazing. Have you heard of hazing, where newer, younger workforce comes in and the older workforce is threatened? So some hazing happens in those workplaces instead of really focusing on social cohesion in that workplace. So again, these are people programs, but they're not just programs. It needs to be truly integrated into your work environment, and knowing how your people tick and how to communicate with them on a very different level is just so crucial right now. So these are great tools to help for all the generations, including Xers and Boomers and Yers.
So on that note, the great thing is that we live on the planet of the apps, and that's really contributing to our well-being. The irony is that we need apps to help track things like digital detox. So I need my phone to see how much time I'm spending on my phone and whether that's a healthy relationship I have or an unhealthy one. I think for all of us, it's a relationship that's hovering on definitely unhealthy. We can track things like fitness, so much so that even on a handheld device like a watch, you can pretty much do an analysis of how healthy or unhealthy your heart is, and even alert paramedics in case there's something going wrong. So that kind of stuff is happening automatically. We've got apps to track things like gratitude journals, and research seems to say that spending 5 minutes thinking about all that you're grateful for in your life is a good way to contribute to well-being. In addition, there are mindfulness and meditation apps which are supposed to help in better sleep and alertness. Although my opinion is that if you leave your phone in a different room when you go to sleep, you'll probably sleep better and not get tempted to respond to emails in case you wake up during the night. Once again, I'm preaching what I don't practice at all. I was exchanging emails with Char at about 3 a.m. my time last evening. So that's a confession from me. And there was no real pressure saying this is urgent, it has to be responded to right now. But I think that's just
Right.
the way we're wired and the way we tend to react.
Well, the reality is apps and devices are part of, almost every employee now has their phone in their hand. And I think also it's about the culture of trust. So I think it's good to foster these apps to help us with our well-being. And then you as a leader have to have trust that your employee is not just fiddling around with their phone all day and texting and doing things, you know, to encourage the utilization of these well-being apps to really help you. So for example, one of the things that my company, Rocky Mountain Health Advocates, is looking at is a company that really helps with alcohol and substance abuse cravings. And so it's a physician sponsored with medication, but also they have apps and online coaching around substance abuse. And we're going to offer this as a service eventually with Rocky Mountain Health Advocates, because I think that helping people with tobacco addiction, alcohol addiction, modifying behavior, I think creating a culture. So for example, when I was at my employee meeting, instead of being fearful to talk about these topics that are very psychologically sensitive, we are starting to have the psychological safety to be very transparent and real and say, not that we're going to ask our employees what habits they want to change, but openly talking about there's tools, there's resources. If you need help getting these resources, we know of these services that can help you. Let me send you the link to this app or this service, instead of just throwing somebody a pamphlet. So this has changed so much. And I think if a leader can establish that trust in their work environment to support these things, it's okay if your employee looks at their phone once in a while, at least in my opinion. So I like that, Planet of the Apps. Oh, you're on mute, Sam.
Sorry about that. No, I was saying that, you're right. There's a lot of good tools out there, and using them effectively is important. I know, Sumit, you have some case studies that you brought up. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Absolutely. So a lot of leading organizations across the world are starting to see that there is concrete business value to be obtained through well-being. It's not just a warm, fuzzy concept about something you should be doing. The first example is that of Unilever, where they have a program called Lamplighter, which focuses on good nutrition, focuses on fitness and building mental resilience. And they've got annual health checkups. They provide you counseling for your physical and mental well-being. The latest is they're planning to add financial counseling as well. So in case you're in debt, you can opt for free services to help you restructure debt, get out of debt, and build smarter investment decisions. In addition, again, like a lot of organizations, they're starting to partner with folks like Thrive, and they've got a four-pronged model of physical, mental, emotional, and purposeful well-being. So a sense of purpose is as per new research earlier, the focus was on how happy are you with your life. Now the focus is on, do you have purpose or meaning to your life? And a lot of organizations are trying to build that in. Adobe is doing similar stuff. So they've got
Did we just
provide you wellness reimbursements. And they've also sponsored the Headspace app for all their employees. So you can use the app to meditate, and it's a good way to use your phone, but not be distracted by WhatsApp, Twitter, and 20,000 other notifications that are going on. In addition, they do have an employee assistance program as well, where not only you yourself, but your family members can avail of the program as well. Comes in handy in times like the ones we're currently in, where you're, as an employee, you're stressed because your partner or somebody in your family is being laid off and is facing the impact of COVID at their workplace. So you can avail employee assistance. That person can also avail a few free sessions. And Microsoft does a lot of similar stuff, so I won't go point by point, but the idea being that they do have well-being mentors, and they have people who you can make micro commitments with. So they promote the buddy culture, where if, let's say, Sam and I are micro commitment buddies, we talk about a problem like me being addicted to my phone and carrying it everywhere I go. So I make a commitment that from tomorrow, post 8 p.m., the phone will stay in a different room and I'll stay in a different one till it's morning.
Yes,
of course.
One of my clients uses sessions throughout the day of mindfulness sessions, and so employees can schedule these times, or they're encouraged to schedule times with their accountability partner, as you mentioned, a person that they're paired with, that they share goals with and keep each other on track. And so that's proven to be very effective, especially in the area of mindfulness, when people are going through a lot of stress right now.
Absolutely. Somebody like me would probably cheat a little with my notifications on the watch, Sam, but I mean, jokes apart, I think making these commitments and helping each other stay on track is the best way to make some progress on one's own well-being.
Exactly. You know, yesterday I was in one of the malls that is desperately trying to open, and I went to an Apple store, speaking of big leading companies, that's very progressive. And I was standing in the hour-long line just to get a keyboard for my iPad, which was another story. But they were very, very adamant right now, obviously, with, you know, the social distancing. 2 security guards were taking our temperatures. I mean, 2 fully uniformed security guards. Obviously hand sanitizer everywhere, all the markings on the floor. It was almost a little military, you know, istic. I mean, to the point where a woman happened to walk in and they were chasing her down and get out of the store. But what was interesting as I was eavesdropping, as I was standing in this line, is I was hearing the security, and this is just yesterday, I was hearing the security officer talk to the gentleman that was taking, you know, like the intake person with their devices and getting them scheduled for the next person to talk. Well, you know those directory signs, those electronic directory signs that are in the middle of the mall? There's an electronic directory sign where you can touch the screen and tell you which store to go to. But it was playing this music, like a 30, less, maybe 15-second loop of this music. Na 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 na, you know, and it just kept doing that. And it was starting to really get on my nerves. I almost felt like I was in a Disneyland line for an amusement park ride for 2.5 hours, like the Hong Kong one. I've been in that line before. But anyway, the music just was a little loop, and so as I was listening to the employees speaking, the one guy's, how you doing? Oh, hanging in there. Oh my gosh, this music is driving me insane. I go home at night and I think about this song all night long. And they all were griping about it under their breath, and they didn't know I was kind of listening. But it's like those little teeny things. Yes, we're doing social distancing. We're doing all these things right. We're helping our clients be safe. But there's an environmental factor in the environment that was really adding to stress and angst, anxiety. And some of the guys I heard were like, yeah, maybe I don't want to work here anymore. And this is a really big company.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, and these times put us at the test, you know, of how we are handling things internally and externally, how our customers are feeling about what we're doing. Of course, we're trying to bring safety, but we can do this in a way where we can also enhance the customer experience as well. So and right now a lot of companies are out there being reactive, but we need to be more innovative and creative with the safety element and creating and healthy workplace and so forth, and doing it in a way where people feel that they're taken care of and not that they're going through a regiment. So
yeah, and creating that environment, like for those gentlemen that were talking about that, I mean, feel comfortable to be able to tell your boss, you know, this is really affecting the work environment. I'm feeling comfortable to say something about it, and having that psychological safety is really, really key.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we've spoken about a lot of these factors already. So there are, of course, multiple benefits of tracking well-being. Some of these are tangible, some of these are intangible. So there is definitely a dollar value to improving well-being. There's also the entire brand recognition part of it. And Char, the example, the story of your cat passing away and the insensitivity around that, which you shared. There are companies like Salesforce which do allow you to take bereavement leave in case a companion animal passes away. So while it may not make me join that organization and say, hey, in case I lose a companion animal, this company is going to give me leave, so let me apply there. But it makes, so one, when you hear that story, you tend to think of the employer as a sensitive, progressive workplace, which sounds like your kind of place. Secondly, when you're comparing two similar offers, it might just tip the balance in favor of one about whom you've heard such stories. So attracting the right kind of talent is easier for companies that invest in well-being. And of course, all the regular benefits of improving productivity, better business results, more engaged and productive employees, all that's definitely there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you really want to stand out as an employer, being extremely progressive and innovative, I mean, all of those topics are things to really think about. And so going to this slide, okay, so this again is my company, and we really do are thriving and striving to be a healthy employer in many of the things that we are doing in my company. So for example, Susan wearing that face shield, well, she found a more comfortable face shield that is just like little sunglasses. They're far more comfortable than having that big thick thing on your head. mean, granted, it's $5 from Amazon, but we can, you know, invest in that. You know, really looking at, like I talked about, the as far as like looking at new and innovative technologies, like this is a sample of a hand scanner where you can check your immunity system and see how, if you should get on supplementation. Not only are we offering this free for our employees, we offer it free for our clients. And so granted, we're not making any money off of it, maybe on the back end if somebody orders some supplements, but that's really not the bread and butter of our business. But really exhibiting that, and again, it's an app. It's types of things that we can do, and then other things of having the disinfectant and having those types of things in our workplace. So we spend a lot of time talking about health and well-being in my company. We spent a lot about time talking about, for example, Andre Bloom helped me with some interviews with some of my employees, and some of my employees dealt with some car accidents in the past that really impacted their health and well-being today. Or they dealt with some really issues personally, and being able to provide that psychological safety to talk to employees about it. And this is what I call HR with a heart. And, you know, I realized when I was in a corporate role, I think that a lot of big companies talk the language of being a caring employer, but quite candidly, I hate to say it, HR doesn't really have the best reputation. I hate to say it, we're not necessarily the most loved professionals out there. And I don't think that we can have a pipe dream that we are going to be absolutely loved or really appreciated. But I do believe that HR professionals and executives that sponsor HR programs, and not just programs, but the environment of culture around a healthy employer concept, can have HR with a heart. And also be authentic and real to realize that we have made mistakes. I mean, I can think of many examples of where today I would do it very differently than I would have done it 15, 20 years ago. And really having that authenticity to really think about that is HR with the heart. So what should we do, Sumit?
I think starting from HR with a heart is a great idea, Char. So step number one, to improve well-being, listen to your target audience. So figure out what people are saying, what do they want, what are some of the challenges they're facing. So look at qualitative and quantitative information. That should be step one. One can even do a specific well-being survey where we're asking them some pointed questions on what's impacting their well-being, what are some of the things they would expect, and so on. And then quickly regrouping and going back to them with an action plan to say that this is what we heard you say, this is what we're proposing as a result. Do you think it addresses your needs, or do you think it requires some further refinement? And of course, we would have our own research-backed points of view as well, which we can use to nudge people in certain directions and say that if we do A and B, C and D are likely to result. So that's what the journey should look like. And of course, I think for anyone interested, we can always have an in-depth chat about what's their context like and how we can step in and help them in significantly improving well-being and unlocking some financial and non-financial benefits as well.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful to have an additional thought partner that is kind of outside of the trees, you know, a little bit outside of aspects. And I also, like you said earlier, it's just so important to listen and engage and listen to what employees feel. I mean, really step in the shoes of, you know, go on a night shift, sit in the work environment at night, or any environment, and really think and realize what your employees are saying about why I can't take the time to get a drink of water, or this is why I'm not feeling productive today, and I'm feeling upset at work. Why is that? It's not just about writing up an employee and putting them on a performance action plan. There's probably something more deeper, like well-being wise, health wise. And so all of these steps are great. So yes, you're absolutely right. We at our company, at CompTeam, we'd be happy to be a thought partner with you and take advantage of those 15 minutes. And we can get that started with you.
Yeah, that's right. So just to go full circle from the beginning, we do have that poll up that you can just launch there, that you can reserve some time with either of us, or sign up for that 1 year access to the TMA assessment tool. so which we can send out
Yeah.
to.
And so this is great. I mean, I've already been applying this with my company, with Rocky Mountain Health Advocates, starting these conversations. And I'm telling you, even as a seasoned HR person, telemanagement person, these conversations are so different using the TMA method. Really taking advantage of this gift to really think differently. And oftentimes, I know there's a lot of assessments out there. I know that there's many different type of personality assessments, and we can go on and on. But there's something really different about being very engaged in the preferences and the talents and the skill sets, and really identifying from a real crucial point of view of as far as what employees think about their preferences and their talents. Granted, they'll in the conversations you might get into some territory about their health and well-being, but what a better way is to have a tool to open up that discussion and really identifying those drives and really identifying those areas of talent that's impacting. Also keeping in mind that some of your employees from a social cohesion standpoint can be a real leader with the rest of your team to really support the others that may be struggling. So yeah, we suggest you take advantage of this tool, and everybody that's on the participant line here, if you want to send us a chat or an email, we'll be happy to send you a free TMA method and give you the experience of going through this yourself, and perhaps talk about if this might be helpful for your organization. So I highly recommend that.
Great. Well, I think that was a great conversation and very important for today. So thank you everyone for your participation there. Thanks, Char and Sumit. It's really good information you brought up.
Right, and so yeah, definitely we want to open up a conversation a little bit more. So if any of our, Brian, if you had any thoughts or comments about our discussion today, Lisa, and then also, you know, we want to talk about it, because I do think that it's not just wellness, the wellness department. I think it needs to be an entire culture of health and well-being overall in your work environment. And I think right now, employees demand this, they expect this. And if they see that your organization is just blowing that off, okay, we're gonna reopen now, you know, we gotta get our productivity numbers, we gotta get our widgets through the door, your employees are gonna say, you know what, I think, you know, this employer is promoting that they have free healthcare, and this employer is working on having a great work environment for me. I think I'd much rather go to that employer. So employee retention, engagement is so important right now, and this might be the key. So Lisa and Brian, did you have some other thoughts?
Oh, well, one other thing, just before we jump on, I'm promoting a lot of our audience to panelists. So if you guys wanted to go ahead and speak or share your thoughts, feel free to jump on. You don't have to share your video if you don't want to, it's fine. But, go ahead and share your thoughts.
I mean, while we're waiting on that, I think that this idea of health and wellness in the workplace is just more broader societally than what is happening. I mean, if you think even of just the organic food movement and how it has increased, just the quality of food is now something that you'll see a large organic section in the grocery store. And so there's a whole bigger theme, I think, happening societally. So I think that's really key, Char, what you're saying, that the demand has to be there from the groundswell. Because that's what's going to make employers pay attention, is if the supply of people that want to work there is really small because you have a toxic work environment, you know. So there's a lot of that. And I still come back to with what we are seeing so that's one point, but also what we're seeing in the shift to people working from home and remote home. Andre was, we were exchanging in the chat a little bit about the idea that really health starts with the home and the wellness in the home, whether you live alone or whether you live with your family. If the home environment is toxic in itself, in terms of it's just the environment, the relationships, that positive emotions really do lead to immune system health and overall health. And so I just want to reinforce that, you know, it might be important. We've been talking a lot about just the things programs that an organization or an employer can do, but really coming back to how can we support you in homeschooling your children? How can we support you in, you know, having space in your home that is, got an ergonomic chair. There's all these kind of things that are happening now that in this transition to, in many cases, permanent working from home, that are part of this equation as well. And managers being very present to the employees' needs around that, I think, is a big piece. And it's important.
Right. I mean, the Zoom fatigue is a real thing. I mean, I think a lot of times we think that, oh, I get to sit on my computer all day and, wear my jammies on the bottom and everything else. But Zoom fatigue, oh, do I do that? Yeah. But it really is something to think about. Hey, Brian, do you have a thought about things like virtual work?
Well, I think that, with all great crises come great opportunities. And, my thinking on this is that this is a large opportunity for many companies to kind of look at larger processes and determine really where they want to go. It could be epiphanies for many senior leaders to finally, once and for all, realize that they're in a people business, not necessarily just a manufacturing business or a business that creates products. Oftentimes, I think over the last 50 to 100 years, there has been a trend towards trying to separate those into houses within a company, to where operations and finance and the related areas, accounting of a business, are all around the spreadsheets and how are we doing and what's happening for the next quarter and how do we beat estimates, and then we'll let the people handle the people issues. And so HR gets kind of siloed off into an area in which all of the people issues are taken care of, and that includes wellness here. My own sense is that if a company responds to the current crisis in COVID by saying, oh, let's get more wellness programs in place, let's add a hotline for employee assistance program, let's do those kinds of things, I think they're missing the boat. I think that in this crisis really creates this opportunity for businesses to say to themselves, maybe it's time for us to really break down silos, realize what we are as a business, realize that everything we do as a business relates to people, and therefore the emotional, mental, physical health of people. And what can we do to ensure that we're addressing all of those issues? If we take care of our people, they will take care of our customers, and that will take care of the bottom line. That's a mantra that I've said in my career for the last 30 years. That's got a lot of roots in Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard, and it's extremely true today. It's just a matter of whether or not senior leadership can make that leap, can have that epiphany.
Right. And one of your earlier presentations with us, Brian, it was several weeks ago. I love you actually showed that boardroom where it was an organizational development program or organizational effectiveness meeting, and it was like a strategic meeting. And yeah, it may have been a developmental meeting, but these executive leaders are all, maybe the top 20 to 30 of them are in this room. Well, first of all, we're not necessarily getting into these meeting rooms right now, and we're not sitting around watching PowerPoints and hearing the chief HR officer standing in front of the boardroom saying, oh, we're going to do this service excellence program and this and that. I think you're right. The real challenge is the executive buy-in, and it all starts at the top. It starts with the executive leader that truly believes in this, and that it's not just a people program anymore. The people strategy is just as much a part of our strategy as our financial strategy, as our operations strategy, as our marketing strategy. And it all is integrated and incorporated, and all of it interconnects. All those topics that we were talking about through this presentation, it all is part of our overall culture. And I think that oftentimes executive leaders don't want to talk about it. They'd rather pull out their bring their books and go through the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, from a personal standpoint, I have been on that island before. I have been on the island standing there shouting at the top of my lungs. This is not about one role in this company that's going to change the tide as a little tugboat, and you've got the Titanic and you got the huge, which you don't want to sink, right? We have some analogies we were talking about recently. Your company is going to sink if we don't think of the holistic aspect of talent management strategy relative to the well-being and health strategies and people strategies. It is fully integrated. So I know, like Sam, you're a financial guy, and and I know it's, Sumit, I think you have some financial background too. I mean, what do you think is going to change the mindset about really embracing the people strategy? Now you're on mute.
Big thing is making sure that we can communicate this in a sense of what gets attention of a lot of the financial and executives is understanding the ROI and creating and this is quite difficult when we're talking about the path not taken and so forth but that's where it really needs to come up. I mean, just the amount of what it costs in turnover. I mean, it can cost a lot of money to recruit. I mean, I think it's several $1,000s to just for any particular employee and recruiting costs, not let alone time lost and productivity and ramping people up. And so a lot of these things, turnover and attraction is quite important. So we need to turn it into numbers to really to influence the executive team and the financial team to invest in these things.
And don't you think that as individuals that are accountable for the people strategies, to have some help, to have some real help to dig in and do the analytic analysis?
Oh yeah.
I know I personally needed that. I mean, I have to mention that, speaking of my own competencies and skill sets from a business acumen standpoint, I had to make friends with the CFOs. The CFOs and the HR people don't necessarily always see eye to eye.
Yeah.
But for my business acumen to really understand that is really critical. And that's
right.
what I love that we do, is we offer that resource.
That's right. So a lot of the time is business leaders or HR practitioners want to find out how they can build up a business case to really be influential, and we can help them do that if that's if anybody out there is looking for that service, we can help them build that business case.
Right. You have to be a credible activist. Yeah, Sumit?
And that'll be useful, Sam and Char, because so I've dabbled on both sides of the table. I've been an HR business partner. I've also been a consultant. And I've realized that as HR practitioners, sometimes we get so involved in speaking the HR language that we forget business. And we forget that when we are talking to a CEO or a CFO or whoever controls expenditure, we forget to bring in the business value of what we are proposing. So just because it'll keep the people happy doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done. And if we only build stronger ROI models and stronger business cases, I think we'll see a lot more traction in something like well-being, which seems warm and fuzzy at first, but has more value. So I think CEOs have a lot more patience for reward strategy, compensation, etc., because you're directly talking numbers and you can show impact very, very clearly in terms of dollar value.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had some people this year that they're saying, I've been out trying to help these companies, and they're saying, oh, we really can't invest in that right now. We just did a layoff or whatever, and they're concerned. And the thing is that these strategies will save them money and help them retain their employees and so forth. So sometimes companies will they need to understand the ROI to be in the right time to invest in these important issues.
Right. And I say nothing helps you drink from the fire hose and have a real awakening when you're a former HR person that opened your own business as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting because I was one that sat at the executive table and came up with, oh, this is how we save on workers' comp. This is how we save in retention. This is how we're going to save on making our employees more engaged and more productive. But oh my gosh, when you finally become a real business owner and you are at the financial table for real, and you realize that your company may go under, you get a whole new aspect about how to have a people strategy and how to apply it to the financial and operations strategy. Mm-hmm. So it's been interesting. And I would tell you, many of you that are watching today are probably also experiencing the thing where you're opening your own businesses, you're getting more in the entrepreneurial space, working more virtually, thinking out of the box differently. I relate with you. And so we appreciate that you're on this journey with us and that you're helping us with these dialogues and crucial conversations about it. And we really would love for you to have a conversation with us, because We really want to help you. We'd love to talk to the actual chief HR officer and the CEO and the CFO, all those different types of titles that are really in the weeds and really concerned that they're not going to be able to sustain their business. And so we welcome you. So to wrap it up, we're about end of our time here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think this has been a great topic. We'd love to hear from you about any future topics that you'd like us to speak to. And if you want to be a future speaker with us, we're building out this People Strategy Forum going into the rest of the year and beyond. And some of these topics, you know, I think we're going to have a lot more conversation about. So if you would like to partner with us, be part of this community, we would love to have you in this discussion. And then we also are planning to do breakout discussions by certain topics and interests and expertise. So yeah, this has been an amazing program. Yes.
Sorry, Char. I was just going to say before we close that next week we're going to be talking about culture of innovation. And I think I'm going to weave in a breakout session for those who are in attendance to have the chance to talk a little bit about how you're doing this within your own team or culture. So it should be a good session.
And this is complimentary. You know, we're doing this out of the HR with a heart.
I gotta go for my next meeting. See you guys.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. So take care, be well, and we will see you next Wednesday at Mountain Time at 10 a.m. So thanks for joining us today.
Excellent. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Sumit. Bye.